Today's book review is going to be talking about a book written by Miyamoto Musashi. The book is called The Book of Five Rings, or The Scroll of the Five Rings. And if you don't know who Miyamoto Musashi is, he was a 15th century samurai. Not only was he a samurai, but he was also a great warrior. He was a soldier. The shogun asked him personally to come and fight in a war of his. And so the review is going to be looking into the values that Miyamoto talked about in his book and how it's still applicable in today's world. So the first thing to understand is what the Book of Five Rings is. So what does the title mean by the Five Rings, or the Scroll of Five Rings? When Musashi was coming to the end of his life, he wanted to pass down his knowledge and information for his students so that they can read it and for their students to understand it. And so for his knowledge to be passed on to future generations. And so before he died, he wrote these 5 scrolls where he passed down all the knowledge that he had attained throughout his lifetime. And so these came to be known as the 5 scrolls, or the Scroll of Five Rings. And each of these scrolls represented an abstraction, topic to be understood, specifically earth, water, fire, wind, and void. And so what do each of these abstractions mean? Well, first is earth. And what's to be understood by earth? And earth means, at least for Musashi, understanding physically and mentally the battlefield. And so for him, it meant for a warrior to understand where he stood, understanding the physicalities of the battlefield, the area he was fighting in, everything that there was to understand about where warfare was about to be conducted. Now, what it means on a more practical level for people like us in the modern day is essentially understanding how to be grounded. So for us, it would mean understanding where we are, what type of place we're in, understanding the place that we stand in. So essentially it just means understanding where we are. The next is water. And for Musashi, it was about being flexible and adaptable. So for him, it was about how warriors meant to be flexible and adaptable. It meant for a warrior to understand when to use a certain tactic or strategy at what point in time. It meant understanding just what type of attack you were going to apply at one point in time. But on a more practical level, it essentially means just that, being flexible and adaptable. It's very similar to Bruce Lee's quote where he says to be like water, because water is flexible, it's constantly flowing, but at any point it can come crashing down all at once with relentless force. Next is fire. And for Musashi, it meant for a warrior to understand when to take action, when to take the initiative. And so it's not about being angry or utilizing anger, but more about utilizing when to apply action, when to be actionable. And so understanding at what time to apply an attack, or at what time to use a certain strategy. In the modern day and at a more practical level, it's essentially very similar to that. And for understanding when to use action, when it's best to be actionable. And so not standing by, missed opportunities go by you, but for taking the initiative and being proactive. The next is wind. And for Musashi, that meant understanding the external confrontations that happens outside of our control. And so what that means is understanding the other person that's about to attack you, understanding other things that would have caused some sort of consequence on the battlefield. And so what that means for us on a more practical level is essentially that, and just understanding the things that are outside of our control. Very simple things like being stuck in traffic, being a rainy day, or it being too hot outside, or just anything that's outside of our direct control, so that we understand our strengths, our weaknesses, and how to apply all the other abstractions that we've learned about so far to get through the current circumstance that we're in. And the last abstraction, and the most profound, is something that is not just for the battlefield, but something that's relatable for all throughout time. And it's the void. And what the void essentially means is intuition, creativity, emotion, sense of mind, consciousness. You discuss it in a way that is very similar to a flow state, such as when an athlete gets into a state of mind where them and the thing that they're working with are not two separate things anymore. They become one and the same thing. And so what the void means is that you become interchangeable with the thing that you are interacting with. And so becoming one with the other thing. So what that means for us is essentially entering a state of mind where we no longer have to worry about things that are limiting us, or have to worry about things that might get in our way, and essentially utilizing every good bit of ourselves to confront something. Now, this book has a very deep place in my heart, because this is one of the first philosophy books that I ever read when I was a teenager. So I have a very good memory about it, and it still holds a place in my mind from when I first read it. And really, the whole point of the book is just self-mastery, understanding yourself as a person, your strengths and weaknesses, understanding the world around you, understanding every single variable that you can possibly understand, and becoming essentially one with everything, entering a state of mind that is the most beneficial, that would lead to the best outcome possible, entering a state of being that will allow you to changeable with everything around you, and so leading to the best outcome possible that you can find. And it's incredible because Musashi wrote these scrolls for his students to read. I don't think he ever had in mind that it would reach this part of the world, and that people other than his students would be reading about the stories that he wrote. And so it has reached these parts of the world, and a lot of people learn many things about these things. So I would encourage you to read this book. And with that is the end of the video. I'd like to know what you guys think of the Book of Five Rings, if you guys have read it, and if you guys have thought about it. Let me know down in the comments below so we can have a discussion about it. And with that, see you all in the next one.